Democrats' U.S. tour gathers support in fight against Trump, get angry, man. Community impact hearings offer outlet for grievances and gather evidence for ongoing lawsuits, totaling 10 so far. A Minnesota veteran who found work at the Veterans Benefits Administration after suffering 2 traumatic brain injuries on overseas deployments stood in front of hundreds of people and 5 Democratic state attorneys general on Thursday night and recalled the moment she learned she lost her job. "All I was given was a post-it note," Joy Marver said, inspiring gasps and boos from a raucous crowd. "The post-it note contained just the HR email address and my supervisor's phone number. This came from an external source. DOJ terminated me. No one in my chain of command knew I was being terminated. No one knew. It took 2 weeks to get my termination email sent to me." The firing was so demoralizing she said she considered driving her truck off a bridge but instead went into the VA for crisis care. "Don't fuck with a veteran," she concluded. The story was one of many shared by former federal workers and others impacted by the Trump administration's policies during a town hall in St. Paul, Minnesota, on Thursday, part of a national tour that has offered an avenue for grievances against Donald Trump's first 2 months, but also a way to gather evidence for ongoing lawsuits, totaling about 10 so far, that Democratic attorneys general have filed against the Trump administration. Everybody's putting in double duty. But the point is, we're absolutely up to it. We got 4.5 years of gas in our tanks, and we're here to fight for the American people all the way through, Ellison told reporters before the event began. The community impact hearings, as they're calling them, kicked off in Arizona earlier this month and will continue in Oregon, Colorado, Vermont, and New York, the attorneys general said. Keith Ellison of Minnesota, Chris Mays of Arizona, Letitia James of New York, Matthew Platkin of New Jersey, and Kwame Raoul of Illinois attended the event in Minnesota on Thursday, where the crowd filled a high school auditorium and spilled into an overflow room. Attendees were given the opportunity to take the mic and share their stories. Another veteran who worked at the Veterans Benefit Administration was fired via email by Elon Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, she said. She was part of the probationary employee purge, and her supervisors didn't know she was let go. She recalled that her boss' response to her firing was, "WTF?" A probationary employee at an unnamed federal agency said she was also let go. She interviewed and did background checks for 11 months to secure her federal role. "Now we are forced to put our plans of starting a family, of owning a home on hold indefinitely, and I feel that this disruption of this dream will be felt for the rest of our lives," she said. A former employee of 18F, the federal government's digital services agency, said they were laid off in the middle of the night on a weekend. "I'm grieving. We didn't deserve this," they said. A former USAID worker said she watched as DOJ moved through the agency, accessing files and threatening employees if they spoke up, before she was fired. After several probationary employees shared their stories, Arizona's Mays cut in to ask whether the Trump administration or their agencies had reached out to rehire them. The Democratic attorneys general secured a win in a lawsuit over these firings, and a judge ruled they needed to be reinstated. If that wasn't happening, Mays said, they needed to know. "We can bring a motion to enforce," Ellison explained. "We can bring, perhaps, a motion for contempt. There's a lot of things. But if we don't know that, we certainly can't do anything." Before the town hall began, the attorneys general said that they had secured temporary restraining orders halting or reversing Trump administration directives in nearly all of their cases so far. In several instances, they have had to file additional actions to get the administration to comply with the orders. In a case that ended a pause on federal grants, for example, the pause was ended, but some programs still were not restarted. James said they had to file a motion to enforce to get those programs running again. Trans people shared how the Trump administration's disdain for their community was affecting them. A young trans athlete was kicked off her softball team, her mom shared. A trans veteran was worried about her access to life-saving healthcare. Doctors who treat trans youth said their patients are on edge. Immigrants and people from mixed-status families talked about the specter of deportation and how the threat loomed over their day-to-day. One woman said her mother's partner was deported, as was her husband's uncle. She worries daily whether her mom is next. "The Trump administration has impacted me deeply during these past 2 months alone, but more than ever, we have to come together organized because I'll be damned if they keep hurting my family," she said. Suzanne Kelly, the CEO of the Minnesota Council of Churches, said her organization, which helps resettle refugees, is losing $4 million in federal funds that would go directly to their clients, an amount that can't be replaced with local dollars. She has had to lay off 26 employees, most of whom are refugees or asylees themselves. Refugees they were expecting to help are now stranded overseas in refugee camps, she said. People already here will lose rental aid and other assistance. Whatever your faith tradition, please pray with us for those individuals, and pray with us for this country. We're better than this, Kelly said.